father was in the military though, and so I was only in Senatobia for a year before taking lessons from her before we were moved to Columbus, Georgia, and Fort Benning. And
you must have been 7 or 8.
yeah, I was in second grade, just starting second grade when we moved, and so we stayed there in Columbus until I had just finished the 10th grade, and then suddenly, out of the clear blue, as is the case with the Army, my father got orders to move to Germany. This has to
Goodbye,
be
USA.
This has to be divine intervention, because I had already had an experience with the lady who played the organ at our church when I was about 13 or 14. One Sunday, Mrs. Goodrum stayed after church, and she showed me a few things about how she played the organ for our church services. And I remember standing there watching her, and I was so excited that I was actually shaking all over.
Wow.
I just remember that very distinctly.
You knew that was your destiny.
I knew it. No, and I've never questioned that ever since. So then we went to Germany, and of course, my dad was working. My dad, by the way, was not a musician, but he worked with the 7th United States Symphony Orchestra. Now, this was after World War II. The U.S. government had lots of programs helping the Germans get used to us, cultural things. And so we had a symphony orchestra. I guess we had 7 of them at least, because he was working with the 7th.
Wow.
So he had contacts. He knew I wanted to take organ lessons. One of the guys in the orchestra had a contact with the church music director of the city of Stuttgart, where we lived. Took me, I auditioned, I started taking lessons.
Wow.
The catch wasn't just taking the lessons, it was the teacher didn't speak English. So I had sort of double duty.
Learned it in German.
Yes. Yeah. You know, at first I did have somebody to go with me for a couple of times, but the terms that we use to describe how you play and so forth are usually Italian. That's just universal, unless you're in France. So we got along there just fine. But I did come across, one day I had a strange thing happen. I don't know why this is, but when Germans when they name the keys on the keyboard, they'll go C, D, E, F, G, A, and then when you get to B, if they say B, it implies B flat. I don't know why. And then B natural next to it is H or Ha. So one day I was playing a piece in the key of B flat, I guess, and I guess I missed a B flat somewhere, and the teacher was trying to tell me what I had done wrong, and I started, being a teenager, I started arguing with him. But couldn't argue too much, didn't know that much German yet. But finally he understood why I was confused, and he explained it to me, and so after that time, then I went on to college at Huntingdon and studied with Mr. Rowling for 4 years, and then I met at a concert my next teacher, who was Heinrich Fleischer, who taught at the University of Minnesota, and so that's where I went for graduate work.
And as a gift, you gave me the 2 CD set.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Fleischer's performances.
Yeah, Fleischer had.
I had no idea anything about organ like you know, and they were phenomenal to me.
He was a phenomenal player. He and Mr. Rowley, by the way, they frequently played together.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they knew each other pretty well, and they came from 2 distinctly different schools of playing. So that was good for me.
Sure.
Mr. Rowley helped ever so much with helping me transfer musical thought into my playing on the keyboard. Dr. Fleischer was much more a technician. He wanted to know. He said, if I point to this note on the score, I want you to tell me what finger is going to play that note. You don't have to have
Wow.
a finger number written over it, but you ought to be able to tell
Tell me which finger
soon.
completes it.
And he was not a person that I argued with.
I can imagine not.
Never. And as it turned out, I turned pages for him on several of his programs. And we had rehearsals for page turning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I need to do that, don't I? Gene gets really aggravated with me when I'm turning sheet music for him as he's playing, that I'm 4 measures ahead or 2 behind.
That's right. We had rehearsals about the page turning, and also he had me pulling stops occasionally that had to be just at the right particular moment. And we do it several times till I got it right, and then I sweated as much as he did for those recitals.
In Germany, did you play any recitals?
No, but we arrived in Germany, I was 16, just about to begin the 11th grade. And the organist at the base chapel where we were stationed got sick and had to be sent back to the States for treatment. And I was there, and so I suddenly became the chapel organist
Oh, wow.
at 16.
I
Typical
don't know this story, and
Typical of
I've
it.
been sharing these stories for years.
of the chapel, they had religious services for several denominations, but they had a general Protestant service. But before that, there was an Episcopal service, and I had never been to one. But what helped me get through it was it had a paid tenor soloist, no choir, just this one man who sang each Sunday, and he
Wow.
sat beside me and told me where things came, and he helped me learn how to play Anglican chant, and then the communion service and so forth. And that was a great. I wouldn't have been able to do it without his help, so that helped a lot. That was a pretty good experience, but it kept me from ever going anywhere else to see how church was. So not too long ago I was in Germany, and I went back to Stuttgart, and I went to church in the big main Protestant church there in the
Had it
city.
changed at all?
Actually, I was really surprised at the service, because I was thinking, right, this is the main downtown church. They had, they had just redone the whole church, including the organ, and I was really looking forward to a formal German Lutheran service. And instead, what I got was a
South Alabama?
relaxed atmosphere. The pastor was sitting on the front pew, and when the prelude was over, he got up and turned around and conducted the service standing in front of the communion table.
Wow.
And it was rather informal. By the way, the church was full. There was no choir. There were a lot of hymns. And there was a hymn board sitting over somewhere, and it told the hymn number and which verses, because, in that tradition, in Lutheran tradition, hymns often have 14 or 15 or 19 verses.
Wow.
And so it would say the hymn number and then verses 7, 8, 9, or 12, 13, 14.
And we as Southern Baptists complain when we have to sing 4 stanzas of a song.